Hello, everyone. Welcome to Opinions New by Dr. Frank Tianshi. I'm Frank. In this episode, I want to talk about an interesting topic, kind of a hypothetical topic, that is about the pegging and unpegging of US dollars and Hong Kong dollars. Okay? Back in June, I wrote an article about Hong Kong dollars, right? And also actually had a video, a video episode, little video on this one. Okay? The title is "Will Hong Kong dollars be dying?" Or let me get the exact title here, so you know. I think it's called "Hong Kong Dollar Heading to a Painful Death." Hong Kong dollar heading to a painful death, right? That's the topic of my video, okay? And the reason for that was because the Chinese government has imposed the so-called national security law on the people of Hong Kong. I think that will eventually lead to Hong Kong losing its prosperity, and the Hong Kong dollar, Hong Kong's currency, will walk into total destruction. Yeah. Now that was back in June. Now in July, the U.S. government is still working to come up with some methods to deal with China. Yeah. I have heard from many people. Many people ask, and with the unpacking of U.S. dollar and Hong Kong dollars, is that a tool the U.S. government can use to defeat China? And it's an interesting question because many people, that the Hong Kong dollar and the U.S. dollars are pegged. The two currencies are pegged, right, at a fixed exchange rate. If the U.S. stops allowing Hong Kong dollar to be pegged to US dollar, would that be a big enough blow to the Chinese government or Hong Kong government? Okay? So that's the question. That's what I want to talk about today. Okay? So it seemed to me that the people cannot wait. We all can. All freedom-loving people in the world cannot wait to see the Chinese Communist government, uh, out of the way. Um, get out of power. And we hope that Hong Kong will soon, return to its old glory, good old time without communist, rule. So that's why many people are putting their hope or bet on Trump administration to have some magical ways or tools, methods to force Hong Kong dollar and US dollar unpegged, okay, as a way, using that as a way to defeat the Chinese government. At the same time, not losing US credit, right? But the question then becomes, does US have any way to achieve that? Okay. In my view, in my opinion, of course, US has many ways or methods to use to achieve that goal. But the problem is whether the U.S. government will truly want to do that, and how would the U.S. government look at the consequences, or take into consideration the consequences of doing that. Okay? Because these are the really these tools or these methods, if used, is almost like financial warfare. Right? It's also almost uh, like a really, declare war on China. And I'll give you an analogy. It's just like U.S. government. The U.S. has many nuclear weapons, right? Of course, about a dozen or so other governments of the world, powers of the world, also have nuclear weapons. The U.S. could use nuclear nukes to destroy any country it wants to, if it wants to. Yeah. But under normal conditions, the U.S. would not use those nuclear weapons. It's the same principle, right? Depegging or unpegging the currencies is one of those, right? Weapons, in my opinion. If you look at Hong Kong dollars, Hong Kong dollars has about a history of about 175 years. Originally, the Hong Kong dollar was issued, the currency was issued based on the silver as its reserve, as its basis, and use silver reserve to back its currency. Right? And then Hong Kong was under British rule. Hong Kong dollar was pegged with Hong Kong British pound, Hong Kong dollar, British pound. And then after World War II, Hong Kong authority decided to peg its currency, Hong Kong dollars, to US dollars. Okay? Now, in Hong Kong, the financial authority of Hong Kong government, has three banks. There are three banks in Hong Kong that can issue currency, Hong Kong dollars. Right? The three banks are Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, HSBC, and Charters Bank Hong Kong, and Bank of China Hong Kong. Right? The three banks can do that. But there is a pegged system, which started in 1983. Under the pegged system, the currency issuing, the banknotes issuing bank, the three of them, any one of them, when they try to print more Hong Kong dollars, Hong Kong currency, right? They have to provide to the Hong Kong authority, financial authority, certain amount of US dollars. In other words, they have to give the Hong Kong authority the US dollars in exchange for its right to print Hong Kong dollars at exchange rate of $1 to 7.8 Hong Kong dollars. It's a fixed exchange rate. Okay? And then the authority, the Hong Kong authority, financial authority, will hold this US dollar they have in the fund, the foreign exchange fund, right? Use that to back the Hong Kong dollars that's being printed or in circulation, right? And then starting in May of 2005, Hong Kong Financial Authority actually tightened its rule or its control on the exchange rate, fluctuation of exchange rate between US dollars and Hong Kong dollars. Now the Hong Kong dollar to US dollars, the exchange rate has been limited to between 7.75 and 7.85, just 0.05 above and below the 7.8 official exchange rate. Right? When the exchange rate when it fluctuates to the upper limit, 7.85, the authority will buy Hong Kong dollars and sell US dollars. When it approaches 7.75, the lower limit, the authority will buy US dollars and sell Hong Kong dollars to intervene to maintain the exchange rate. Okay? Just to give you some background information, background knowledge, in Hong Kong, for Hong Kong dollars, there are about 460 billion Hong Kong dollars in circulation right now. That's about only 60 billion US dollars, 60 billion, right? But the Hong Kong economy is about 360 billion US dollars, 360 billion. Okay. In comparison, the US dollars, the currencies we have, there are about 2 trillion US dollars, 2 trillion US dollars in circulation right now. Okay? And the US economy right now is about 20 trillion US dollars GDP per year, right? So that's the background information. Now back to the question we raised in the beginning. What kind of tools, methods the Trump administration, the U.S. government have, to force unpegging of U.S. dollar and Hong Kong dollars, right? First of all, we have realized that the U.S. government has no way to not like any government to peg their currency with the U.S. dollars. because that's their own decision, right? Whatever currency issuing authority, sovereign government, be it a country, a nation, or a Hong Kong, a special region, they can have their own, they can make their own decision to peg their currency to US dollars, and because all I need to do is say, hey, my currency will have a fixed exchange rate with your US dollars, and we're going to maintain it that way. And then the two are pegged. Okay? And it's actually done so by the Chinese government, many years ago, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, when I first came to the US, I remember the exchange rate between US dollar and Chinese renminbi, Chinese dollar then was about the one to five. $1 US, 5 Chinese dollars. Not anymore, right? Not today. Right? Because back then, US dollar and Chinese renminbi, Chinese dollar, they were not freely exchangeable, right? But they need to exchange sometime, right? There are visitors, foreign visitors, American visitors visiting China. They can't spend the US dollars in China. They have to change to Chinese currency at what rate, right? So the bank, or actually the authority, Chinese government, uh, designed or set exchange rate they deemed reasonable. Okay? It's not free market exchange rate. It's a man-made or authority, authorized or decided. Right? So it's kind of like a peg in a way, right? It's still pegged, right? The Chinese dollar and US dollar back then. Right? Even North Korea, they have their dollars. It's called won, won, right? And they can peg with US dollars. They are pegged with US dollars now. Or they have a fixed exchange rate with US dollars right now. For this exchange is not a free exchange. It's not determined market force, but it's decided by the government. So it's not really truly reflecting the true currency, the true value of the current North Korean won, right? So the basically really the will of the North Korean government or any government to have their intention to tie their currency with the U.S. dollars. Okay? But the key here is whether the U.S. government is willing or willing to cooperate with that government, right, to maintain that the exchange rate, pegged exchange rate, right? Of course, U.S. government is not, Angus government is not working, we're not cooperating with the North Korea, okay? But U.S. does have laws to work with Hong Kong government. This has actually happened in 1997 when Hong Kong was returned to China. So U.S. had the agreement with Hong Kong government to maintain this pegged currency system and to maintain the exchange rate. Of course, now we know many measures by U.S. government is coming forth. It's in the process as a way to punish China imposing national security law on Hong Kong. So will U.S. still honor this promise, honor this agreement? We don't know. We'll see very soon, right? And because because Hong Kong is no longer the Hong Kong we knew. It's now Hong Kong of 1997. The Hong Kong's status as a free trade port, and it's also a free capitalist society, right? And it's destroyed by the Chinese Communist government. So in other words, the U.S. government cannot really prevent other countries to peg their currency to U.S. dollars. And then the U.S. cannot really force an unpegging of the currencies because in all countries, any countries, good or bad, and they can all earn dollars, by exporting. They can export their manufactured goods, or raw materials, or corn, rice, or anything they can sell in the international market, and then they can earn some U.S. dollars, right? More or less, they can earn some, right? But even though U.S. cannot prevent others from pegging the currency to U.S. dollars, but the U.S. does or can indeed, choose its own stance and decide whether to cooperate with them to make the pegging working, right? To keep the pegging work, right? So if U.S. Wants to do this, if U.S. decides to do something, right, the U.S. government can indeed make those countries, the who decide to peg with U.S. dollars, make it very difficult for them, make it so hard for them to peg, keep their currency pegged, or make it so costly for them to peg their currency with the U.S. dollars. In that case, those countries probably will give up the pegging and unpegged, right? So then the so-called pegging will no longer exist. So that's why, in theory, there are ways for U.S. government to try to do, to force an unpegging. Okay. So what are the ways? Right? What are the tools? Right? There are four ways I can think of. Right? First one, first tool, first method. Right? The government, U.S. government, if they want to decide to do this, if they decide to do so they can buy those Hong Kong currencies, buy Hong Kong dollars in the currency market. They can buy a lot of them. As I said, there were only how much was it? But 60 billion U.S. dollars worth of Hong Kong dollars there, right? It's about 460 billion Hong Kong dollars in operation in circulation. So, or U.S. American can buy a small amount and accumulate all those Hong Kong dollars in this vault. Okay, and let's say we can easily fetch like 200 billion U.S. dollars to buy those Hong Kong dollars. Okay? Of course, if U.S. is buying those dollars, what's going to happen? Okay? The Hong Kong dollar will price of Hong Kong dollar is going to go up. The value is going to go up. Right? When the Hong Kong dollar's value is going up, and it's going to soon reach the 7.75, limit set by Hong Kong government. Right? What would the Hong Kong government do? Hong Kong authority do? In order for them to keep this pegged exchange rate, they'll have to use their foreign exchange, fund to buy dollars and sell those Hong Kong dollars, right? And they have to buy dollars and sell Hong Kong dollars in order to keep the exchange rate there. Okay? But what if the U.S. continues to buy more and more and more? And then I don't think the Hong Kong government can stand that for too long, right? They're going to ask Beijing for help, right? Will Beijing help? Yeah, Beijing will help, probably will help. But Beijing, their currency, what they have, either Hong Kong dollars or or other currencies, it's limited also, right? What if they both run out of Hong Kong dollars? Right? What can they do? They have to print. Right? They print more Hong Kong dollars. Now remember, but the system I just described. In order for them to print Hong Kong dollar, print more Hong Kong dollars, the three banks, all three banks, they have to provide enough U.S. dollars to the Hong Kong authority in order for them to print the equivalent of Hong Kong dollars, right? But if in that case, would the U.S. government, while attacking Hong Kong, let's just hypothetically, would they also allow those banks, the Hong Kong banks, to use U.S. dollars? Probably not. If not, then the government of Hong Kong, the Hong Kong authority, cannot force the policy of using U.S. dollars to back Hong Kong dollars. And then unpegging will take place. Okay? This, of course, this is just hypothetical. I'm just describing that in technical term. This is not a method. It's a really bad, immoral method the U.S. government is not going to use, and the probably Chinese government will use. Because remember, the Communist government is fighting this. They call this unlimited warfare. I think it's called unlimited warfare against U.S. This currency war is one of them. So Communist government of China could use this, but U.S. government will not use this, right? So this is tool, but it's not likely to be used. That's first method. The second method, I think, is for U.S. government to forbid the banks in Hong Kong, either Chinese banks or other or foreign banks operating in Hong Kong, force them not to use the SWIFT system to settle their transactions. The SWIFT system is owned, operated by the U.S. government, right? Because every transaction in the world financial market, as long as you use U.S. dollars, you go through the system, right? You use that system to pay, to transfer, right? To all transactions. So this is actually you can see it's a nuclear weapon too. It's nuke, right? It's not something too bad. The U.S. government, if necessary, can indeed use that, but they probably won't use that until U.S. and China are at war with each other. Okay? So for now, at least not for now. Okay. Even if Hong Kong banks, the banks in Hong Kong cannot use SWIFT system to settle the transactions, Hong Kongers can still use dollars. They can own U.S. dollars, right? They can still use dollars, just like North Korea can have and use, U.S. dollar to buy things they want, right? Luxury stuff for Kim Jong Un, right? But in that case, if the SWIFT system is close to them, and they can only use Hong Kong market or Hong Kongers, people in Hong Kong, business in Hong Kong, they can only use dollars, cash. They can only use paper currency, paper notes, cash, right? But that's not very convenient, right? For smaller transactions, that might be okay. If it's larger transactions, it's not almost impossible. Okay. That's the second method. The third method is that the U.S. can attack Hong Kong dollars. Just the technical way of describing this, right? Just like what Soros, remember Soros did? Soros did to British pound and the Thai baht to attack the currency. Right? Of course, this is in theory, right? In just technical term, the U.S. government will not do something like this. It's illegal, immoral. It's not permitted by